Hey there, Steve Rubis with another installment of Capital Markets Investor Relations in 2 minutes or less. In today's video, we're going to talk about this idea of guidance is a function of presentation and communication. If you get these two things right, investors are going to reach the conclusions that you want them to reach. And so the key here is guidance success is about presentation, how you show the data, how you give the data, and communication. How do you communicate that and ensure that investors are reaching the right conclusions? And so think of it this way. Are we providing the right detail to investors? Are we communicating clearly? And are ultimately investors reaching the right conclusion, what we're trying to get them to do or calculate in terms of a financial model? And so what are the components of the guidance presentation variable? Well, it's this idea of, are you communicating the right KPIs, the right metrics, the right inputs to price times quantity for investors to build a model or to understand the financial model of the business? Second is, are you telling them how to calculate those components accurately? Sometimes you can't give them the answer, but you have to put the components in a way that illustrates how to create the equation. Third and fourth is, are you displaying the data in a credible way, in an understandable way? And do you have the right data? And most importantly, is the data you're providing investors accurate? And that's a question you constantly have to be asking yourself throughout the guidance process. Now, what about the communication variable of guidance? Well, the communication variable it starts with the idea of format. How are you presenting the guidance? Is it in your earnings release, the earnings supplemental, or the investor presentation? And you need to consider, are these formats optimal? And am I, again, collecting the right data? Is it accurate? And am I putting it in a way that allows investors to calculate it in an Excel model to get to the conclusion I want them to reach? And then second is, do I need to consider using tables or graphs? And this gets to the presentation point. Sometimes investors will be able to digest this guidance a little better if you put it in a table or a graphical format. Third, are you providing the right reconciliations? And this is really important if you're a company that's using non-GAAP measures, that if you're not providing the necessary reconciliations, then your guidance may not be interpreted as clearly and concisely and optimally as you would like. And then finally, callbacks. Are you calling both the sell side and the buy side to help them walk through these components of presentation and communication? And sometimes you can do it in a large group call, and then sometimes you can do it in a large group call plus callbacks and one-offs with every investor that's willing to listen. And a lot of this is a function of, if you're willing to invest the time to reach out to all of these investors individually, you're more likely to have guidance success and people buying into your guidance and giving you points for credibility because you're taking the time to really help them get to the conclusion that management is trying to get them to see. So with that, guidance is about presentation and communication. Thanks for watching.